Today, I want to show you one of my favorite Sims 4 mods ever, and it is ADeepIndigo's Neurodivergent mod. Ooh, girl, this is not a good way to start this video. I was a mental health therapist for over a decade before unfortunately burning out in that field and finding other employment. I've used several mods for mental health things in The Sims before, but this one is by far my favorite, the most inclusive, and I feel the most accurate representation. So again, this is from ADeepIndigo, so you know it is like top-notch quality. It's a huge mod and it brings so much to your game. It includes bringing neurodiversity to your game, self-esteem, mental health, addiction, evaluations, and treatments. There are 25 different conditions your Sims can be diagnosed with. I love that it not only brings like depression and anxiety and things that we're kind of familiar with, but it also brings different developmental disabilities, different learning disabilities. It does bring, again, the neurodiversity things like ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. It brings in personality disorders. It brings in body disorder and eating addiction disorder things. And it's conditions that can affect Sims over their entire lifetime. There are things that are limited to just young adult and above, like the addictions ones, but things like learning disabilities can be diagnosed in toddler Sims, which I think is so cool and so realistic. So instead of reading the mod page to you, I thought I would just show you how the mod works in game. This is a brand new save file that I've made. We have Daisy here, we have her husband Matt, and then they have their infant Blake. Once you install the mod, you're gonna get these pop-ups after a few minutes that tell you some stuff about your Sims. If you're adding it to a saved file that you've already been playing in, it can take up to 20 minutes for that to trigger. But we get this pop-up about Matt and his self-esteem. So Matt has normal variable self-esteem. And if you read it, it says that he has normal and variable self-esteem. He has a healthy and normative level of natural confidence. While Matt's self-image is generally positive, it is variable and vulnerable to external forces. It won't take as much to waver as it would for someone with higher self-esteem. Self-esteem can be built by building up confidence, exercising and engaging in wellness activities, self-help activities, and therapy. I love this so much because it's so realistic. So it's basically saying that his self-image is okay, but depending on what happens, that could change. I love that it also says specifically if that starts getting worse, like his self-esteem kind of takes a dip, that he can improve it by doing exercise and wellness activities and generally just taking better care of himself. I love that it's so realistic because that's exactly what happens in real life. We're not taking good care of ourselves in those kind of different areas, and then we feel bad about ourselves, but we can get ourselves out of it by doing these things. I just love it, and I tend to talk fast when I get excited, so apologies in advance for that. We got a pop-up also that says Blake is neurotypical. So it means that Blake, our infant, his brain functions similarly to most other Sims. So neurotypical is essentially normal, quote unquote. But Daisy is neurodivergent. That means that this Sim's brain functions differently than most other Sims of the same age, and her self-esteem is low. She lacks natural confidence. It will take a while to build a healthy level of self-esteem, but it can be done with patience and persistence and grace. Again, can be built up by doing these things. So she is neurodivergent and also has low self-esteem. Right, fuck off, welcome wagon. I missed this pop-up earlier, but it also told us that Matt is neurodivergent. So Daisy and Matt, the parents, are neurodivergent, and Blake, their baby or infant, is neurotypical. I find that really interesting too because of the genetics, I guess. So two neurodivergent parents and they have a neurotypical kid. That happens IRL too. Like just because a parent has something does not mean it's going to be passed along in the genes. So I think that's really cool too. However, that doesn't mean that the baby might not develop some sort of other mental health condition, or he might even have a learning disability that we find out about later, like who knows. So our pop-ups told us that both of the adult Sims are neurodivergent, but it doesn't really tell us what that means or what it is. If you click on your adult Sim, you're going to see this option for mental health services now. When you click that, you get all of these options. So we want to start with either a psychiatric evaluation or an initial therapy consultation. I love this because this is exactly how it happens IRL. You always have to go for that like really long, usually 2-hour appointment that is an intake and really getting to know you. And then you leave with a not always definitive diagnosis, but some sort of working diagnosis. So in the mod, you do have to go to a psychiatrist for your specific condition or diagnosis. IRL, depending on your licensure, some therapists can diagnose things depending on what it is. But in the mod, you do have to go to the psychiatrist. So you can choose either one though. Like you don't have to go to the psychiatrist first. You can do the initial therapy consultation first. And it tells you that therapy is where you kind of process emotions and it's a safe space to kind of talk about things. I'm going to go ahead and start with the psychiatric evaluation so we can see exactly what's going on here. The psychiatric evaluation is a rabbit hole, so you don't go with your sim, you just kind of wait. And while Daisy is getting her evaluation, we get this pop-up that Matt seems to be struggling lately. Maybe it's worth looking into and consulting with a psychiatrist for an evaluation. So you do get in-game pop-ups from time to time that are kind of like, hey, like your sim isn't doing so great. Maybe they should see someone about that. Oh, and to note, for those mental health services, on adults, it's mental health services, but on kids, it's early childhood development services. And in teens, I think it says teen development services, but they all have the same sort of picture there, so you know which option it is. Leave your baby on the ground, Matt. Good job. And Daisy has returned from the psychiatrist. Upon evaluation, Daisy has been diagnosed with a learning difficulty, dyslexia. Sims with dyslexia have difficulty with reading comprehension, and spelling. The psychiatrist recommends speech therapy for phonological help and tutoring. I love this so much because she is neurodivergent, but her neurodivergency isn't autism spectrum disorder, which is what we usually think of when we think of neurospicy. Hers is dyslexia. I also love that you can say, yes, we want to start treatment, or no, we don't. So you've got that option. Like you don't always have to do what the psychiatrist recommends, but we're going to go ahead and choose yes. And then it gives us the recommended treatment. So the psychiatrist recommended speech therapy as a treatment option and also recommended personalized tutoring. Personalized tutoring, you cannot choose as an adult. I believe that's only an option to choose when you're either in university or a kid attending school or teenager attending school. But that one usually pops up on adults too. So if we click on her again and go to the mental health services, you can see now that we have some additional options. We can go to speech therapy as recommended. We can still get that initial therapy consultation, and we can also sign up for additional support services. Talk therapy is one of those things, but we can also get that therapy eval, personal tutoring. That's the other one that was recommended. Again, I assume that's only when your sim is in school or university. You can also see here that we have some options for support groups and family therapy, which I think is awesome. But it said Matt was struggling, so let's go ahead and send him for a psychiatric evaluation and see what happens. So while we're waiting on Matt, let's see what some of these interactions are. So this mod does bring about 50 new social interactions with sims. You can see here, we can talk about the impact of our diagnosis. So education for fellow sims about what we've been diagnosed with. And then you actually get this whole pie menu with Divergent Sims 2, and you can do all of these things. You can discuss the diagnosis, discuss seeing a therapist, explain the disorder, share stories, talk about the impact. So you can do lots of education for Sims in the neighborhood about whatever's going on. And Matt is back from the psychiatrist, and he also has dyslexia. Oh, that's interesting. I've never had two adult Sims with the same condition before, but we'll go ahead and say yes. Also recommended for speech therapy and personalized tutoring. So it said that Matt was like really struggling, so we're gonna go ahead and send him to an initial therapy consultation too, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. And it asks if he wants to continue therapy. If so, he becomes a patient of the therapist and can continue to book individual and group therapy sessions as long as the sim is eligible. Again, you don't get a diagnosis from the therapy, but it's an extra support. And if you say yes, then you can keep going back to the therapist for different sessions. Matt's returned from that, and he now has this moodlet that says thoughtful therapy. His initial session was really helpful, and he feels a lot better and wants to come back for more sessions. So I think that's adorable that you get little moodlets from things too. Matt was extra struggling though, so let's also send him to, let's go to a support group alone. So if we choose that, we get these different options. There is an addiction support group, there's youth support groups, and then we have caregiver support and mental health support groups. So let's send him to the mental health one, since that seems to be what he's struggling with, not so much parenting. And he's returned. He felt safe and comfortable from hearing others share their stories and his own. He plans to keep coming back because he has found the community really welcoming. And there is a cute little moodlet for that too called supportive group. Also, when your Sims are in really good good moods, if you click on that Divergent sim action, you do get some more choices. Like he can discuss cognitive focusing methods. He can also suggest visualization techniques. And I think that is really cute too, that if they sense someone else struggling or they've learned something, they can share that. Like I said earlier, when you start a Sims game or if you add this to a saved file, it automatically sort of rolls for your adult Sims on if they're going to have a condition or if they're going to be neurodivergent or not. When your Sims age up, there's also that roll for a random condition or something to pop up. So we're gonna go ahead and cheat and age Blake up. Oh, he's doing it with the stinky diaper. That is unfortunate. And he just magically teleported over here for some reason. He is uncomfortable, probably from that age up in a dirty diaper. Sorry, Blake. But if we click on him, you can see now we have youth development services. So there wasn't a pop-up about any sort of mental health stuff for him, so we can assume everything's normal. But if you're unsure, you can go ahead and send them for a psych consultation just to see what happens. I do think it's very cute that child and teen Sims can go with an adult. So we'll go ahead and send Daisy with him. And you can see here, his appointment with the psychiatrist went just fine. The Sim can continue to see the psychiatrist, but currently the psychiatrist discovered no undiagnosed disorders or conditions. Therapy might be a better option should there be mental health concerns that they have. So I love this too, that depending on the symptoms and how the Sim is presenting, medications aren't always recommended. We see this here because psychiatrist says, I don't recommend medications. We also saw that with both Daisy and Matt too. Remember, there's for learning disabilities. Medications aren't usually recommended for just a learning disability. There was another treatment recommendation. So I love that so much. So your Sims are automatically assigned whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical. However, other conditions can develop depending again on what happens to your Sim and interactions that they have. If you click on your Sim, go to actions and then find ADeepIndigo mod cheats, you'll see the Divergent Sims sheet here. So you can assign them a disorder or condition or whatever if you want, just to see what it looks like or for storytelling purposes. So you can do that. You can have it randomly assign a disorder or condition. You can manually assign one. You can add an addiction. You can change the self-esteem. So lots of different options there if you want to control the storytelling, essentially. If you go to assign a specific one, here are all of the different disorders and conditions that your Sims can have. The ones that are grayed out are ones that are not options for them, either because they already have that condition or by having a certain condition, it contraindicates another condition. So for example, Matt has already been diagnosed with dyslexia. That is a cognitive delay and a developmental struggle. So you can't assign those on top of it because that's already kind of included in dyslexia, if that makes sense. Same with global delay, motor delay, social and speech and language delays. Those are all kind of part of that disorder, so you can't give those on top of it. But let's go ahead and give Matt another condition just so you can kind of see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and give him, we'll do PTSD. If your Sim starts developing more symptoms or you get a pop-up that says they're not doing so hot, or you manually assign a condition, you do need to have that psychiatric evaluation to get a diagnosis again. So we're gonna go ahead and send Matt back to the psychiatrist. Sorry, Matt. And he has now been diagnosed with PTSD. Sims develop this disorder usually through a traumatic event or experience. Sims with this disorder can experience flashbacks, usually through some type of trigger. Sims can also experience anxiety, occasional insomnia, nightmares, and bouts of depression and anger. Regular therapy sessions are highly recommended. The psychiatrist presented the option of medication. Is that something he is interested in? So I love that whenever you're diagnosed with something, it does give you sort of a rundown of what that is and what symptoms you can experience. Those are very, very, very accurate from what I've seen. I haven't seen all of them, but from what I have seen in my games, they are pretty spot on with what you would see IRL. And you can see this one is the treatment recommendation is both therapy and medications, which is usually what happens IRL too. You can see here we have some different options we can choose. We can say yes to both therapy and meds. We can say just therapy. We can say just medicines or nothing. So I love that you can kind of mix and match what you want your Sim to do. We're gonna go ahead and choose therapy and medication. And anytime you choose meds, it also tells you that pharmaceutical treatments don't work for everyone. is Matt sure he wants to pursue that as a treatment? So I like, again, that it says, you know, this isn't guaranteed to work. Are you sure? So you have to say yes again. And we can see here another pop-up that says talk therapy was recommended. Psychiatrist has written Matt a prescription for an antidepressant medication, fluoxetine. He can fulfill it at the pharmacy. So now when we go to the mental health services option, we have this option for the online pharmacy. So click that, and then you can fill your prescription medications. It does give you a really small rundown of what that medication is too. It explains that fluoxetine is an antidepressant that can treat a number of different conditions. I like that. It gives you that little rundown too. And it tells you how to take it too. In game, it is once daily. So it is $50 for the prescription. We'll go ahead and buy one. It shows up automatically in your inventory, and it has 21 doses. I think all of the medications have 21 doses, if I'm not mistaken, or the regular ones do, which is about 3 Sims weeks, which is pretty accurate. If you click on the medication, you can take it, and there you go. He grabs the water out of his asshole and puts it on his forehead, apparently. But after you take the medicine, you get a moodlet that says they are holding steady. I love how this is worded. The negative feelings haven't magically gone away, but the medication does help to balance Matt's emotions a bit better. That's better than nothing, right? So I love that it has that education that, you know, medications usually for a lot of disorders, they don't fix or make all of the symptoms to go away, but they do help them be more manageable. I can't say enough good things about this mod. And now we've got a moodlet from the actual disorder on edge, and it tells you what that's coming from. Matt feels like he can't relax. He just constantly feels on edge, and that is a very common symptom of anxiety disorders and PTSD. He's also now sweating the small stuff. Sometimes Matt just gets so angry. It's like the littlest things can set him off. But look, Blake can go over to him and he can give him a pep talk. Also, depending on those moodlets and just the mood that your sim is in, it does change the social interactions. So he's really tense, he's really angry right now. We can blame our kid for the bad mood. We can ask him to leave us alone. We can yell at, we can vent at him. So depending on the moodlets, again, I mean, you don't always get positive interactions. So he's blaming him for his bad mood. Oh, now they're arguing and they've got some negative moodlets. So not such a good thing, right? Blake can also talk about the impact of his behavior it has on him. And for shits and giggles, and just really to show you how extensive this mod is, we're gonna go ahead and give Daisy an addiction. And it's not droog addictions. I should have said that earlier. It's different sort of addictions. There's caffeine, gambling, gaming, and shopping. So not droog ones like what you would get in a basemental mod, but other real addictions. I'm gonna go ahead and give her let's give her a gaming addiction, and we get this pop-up. Seek help ASAP. Recovery is hard, but it's achievable. Ooh, and now Matt has woken up and he feels hyper vigilant. He is on alert. Another thing I love about the mod is that it does impact your Sims in different environments too. So I've sent the whole family to the library, and Matt instantly got on edge again. He just can't relax. He feels very uncomfortable, likely because there's a lot of Sims around in a new area, a new place, and he just doesn't feel safe. And that's exactly what happens with PTSD a lot. Also, now that Daisy has her gaming addiction, she can go to rehab. Rehab is an intensive commitment and is available for Sims with behavioral addictions to aid in their recovery. And this lasts for 3 days. While rehab has a high success rate for addiction recovery, it does require an intense time commitment of 3 days. Sims cannot check themselves out. Obviously, that's not as IRL-ish, but it is, 3 days in Sims time is pretty extensive. Off she goes to rehab. Rehab is a rabbit hole again that your Sim just stays out for 3 days. And Matt is not coping with that so well. So he's gonna go to a therapy session about it. Matt's returned from that session, and this one he felt was useless. It didn't seem as useful as usual today. It felt kind of pointless, to be honest, but maybe some kind of progress was made. So again, pretty realistic that therapy sessions aren't always fantastic. But you know what? Could be more helpful in this situation, since the mom went off to rehab, is maybe a family support therapy with Blake, because obviously a Sim parent going to rehab is a big deal. So they're just gonna go to that little rabbit hole of family therapy. They have returned. It pains Blake that a family member struggles with their issues, but he hopes that they can get through this together as a family. Whereas Matt says it's selfish, of course, but Matt can't really see past his own issues right now. So very realistic. Blake has lending a shoulder moodlet from family therapy. Matt has adrift and alone because he feels so misunderstood. So that's a brief look at a lot of the interactions that you have, the new activities that you can do, kind of how it affects your sim socially and the moodlets that you can get. The other thing I like too is it does show up as sort of a hidden trait or a reward trait in your Sims profile. So you can see the stuff about PTSD there and dyslexia, and it just gives you a little bit more information about those. You do get milestones as well. So here's the one for Daisy's video gaming addiction. Here's one, just the kind of general mental health condition diagnosis. And here's the one for a learning disability. Oh, and here's another fun thing I literally just found out. I was going through just to make sure there was nothing that I missed, and I just realized that Matt now has this option to visit Sim at treatment center. We can visit Daisy. Oh, and both of them can go. Oh, that is so cute. I did not know that that was an option that we had. Matt is happy to see that Daisy has sought help and seems to be putting in the effort needed. It feels great when family members come to check up on Daisy. If there are any other mods that you suggest I check out or review, please let me know. And make sure you watch this video here for some really chaotic Sims gameplay.